Hello everyone and welcome to JournalForGills. My name is Lewis and in today's episode of JFG Meets we have former Gillingham forward Ben Strevens on the show. Obviously, unfortunately, due to the current coronavirus pandemic, we were apart when having the chat, so it did have to be a phone interview, but do stay tuned for inside stories on getting into the game, last thing at Barnet, success at Dagenham, ups and downs at Wycombe, Martin Allen, the Gills strike force of 2012-13, moving to Eastleigh, his transition into coaching, his relationship with Andy Hesenthaler, becoming a manager, how coronavirus will affect his season, and more. Enjoy. So we're now joined by former Gillingham forward Ben Strevens. Ben, thank you for coming on. How are you doing at the minute?
No worries, thanks for having me on, mate.
Cheers. No worries at all. Obviously, like we were speaking a bit off air, not really positive times at the minute, but hopefully right now we can give people their football fix, get a little bit of an insight into your career, what you're doing at the minute and what the future holds, that sort of thing. We've got a certain amount of time, so we'll crack on straight away, and we want to start off at the beginning. Why football? What got you into football at the start?
I don't know, to be honest. Obviously, my dad obviously was a big football fan and played when he was young, so it's just sort of thing I can remember, to be honest. Going to watch Arsenal with my dad, watching him play on a Sunday with his friends and things like that, and then by the age of, I think it was 8, I was begging him to get me into a Sunday team, so sort of everything I've ever known, to be honest. From an early age, I suppose my dad's been the biggest influence on that.
Yeah, fair enough. And how did your sort of progression into the professional game happen in terms of your academy and joining your first clubs, that sort of thing?
Well, I was from the age of, I think it was about 10, I was scouted by Watford. I lived over in Barnet, so I was scouted by Watford, and I was with Watford from about 10 to, I think it was 15 or 16 I was with Watford, and believe it or not, I was just one of the smallest players in our squad, so there was talk of keeping me down a year because they didn't want me to leave, but they also knew that I was going to struggle going up to the 16, 17-year-olds just because of the size and things like that. And I used to travel with one of my friends who played for the same Sunday team as me on a Thursday night to go training. His dad, my dad, and he got released one Thursday, and I just said to my dad, I don't want that to be me the following week or the week after, whenever it was. So I said to my dad I wanted to leave. So I left Watford when I was 15. They didn't. I wouldn't say they wasn't. They tried to get me to go back, but they didn't pursue it like I was saying, because I was one of the smaller ones. So I just went to playing football with my friends. We're still playing Sunday football, and I went and played for a local team called Wingate and Finchley. Yeah. They were in the Ryman Division 2, I think it was, or Division 3 at the time, and I went and played for their youth team, which was a midweek thing. Scored a lot of goals for their youth team playing in the midweek league, and we played against a lot of bigger clubs, and the progression was to get into the first team, and I went with them in the pre-season thing, and I literally just hit the ground running. I scored like 30-odd goals or something, and before I knew it, lots of teams wanted to get me to go and sign for them, and I ended up signing for Barnet just because they offered me a professional contract. A few other teams, bigger teams, had only offered me academy forms. I was like 17, 18, so I chose to go to Barnet on a professional contract, and I don't regret it, to be honest. Yeah,
and I know you had a couple of loans naturally, like a young player would at Barnet, but what allowed you to settle down there?
Look, the biggest thing for me, I had a manager that gave John Steele, he loved non-league boys, so I was coming out of a non-league team. He loved young players, to give them a chance. And being completely honest, it was the location of it for me. I literally lived 10 minutes from the training ground, 15 minutes from the ground. It was my local team, so it just fitted really well for me there. And unfortunately for me, the club got relegated. I think it was my second season there. Tony Cotty took over as manager, and we had a bit of a bad spell. And John Steele come back in and just couldn't keep us up. But it probably ended up in me, starting to play regular first team football, because obviously the wage bill went down and quite a lot of players left. So I ended up playing a lot of games at a young age at Barnet.
And I was going to say, because that year, the relegation, only one team went down, didn't they? And it had to be Barnet typically. And I think that was the year after they just finished in the playoffs as well.
We reached the playoffs, and I played in the playoff semi home leg. I come off the bench against Peterborough, and we lost. I think it was 2-1, or we drew, and then we lost at their place in the second leg. And in the second year, John Steele stepped down and Tony Cotty come in, and I remember his first game, we absolutely battered Blackpool at home.
Yeah.
And I think everyone thought, right, they're going to go up this year, and we was just in and around the playoffs, and I don't know what happened. I'm not sure. I was only a young lad at the time, but it just didn't seem to work with Tony Cotty and the senior boys for whatever reason. I don't know why. And we went on a bit of a free-fall, flew down the league, and ended up on the last day of the season. We played Torquay. They were second bottom, and we were bottom, and we needed a win to stay up, and we ended up losing 3-2. So it was a bit of a surreal feeling. I was on the bench, sub not used. So it was a bit of a weird day, really. And before I knew it, I was back in playing in the National League, back in the non-league scene where I'd worked so hard to get my professional chance. But like I'm saying, ultimately ended up meaning I started playing a lot more games.
Yeah, definitely. And we'll get on to the sort of 04-05 season, the title winning season soon. But how were those years in non-league for you?
I think it's the best place any young player can learn, if I'm being completely honest. You come up against, either young, hungry players that are trying to make their way, or you come up against some senior players that are sort of at the back end of their career, and you learn loads off of them, and you have some real tough opponents. So my path into football, in terms of not probably being at an academy or doing any youth team thing, I think actually in the long run really helped me in my career, because I played a lot of games non-league when I was like 17, 18, and then obviously, like I'm saying, with Barnet, by going down into the National League, although I was really gutted at the time, it probably meant that I played like 100 games before in that level before I even knew it. So it was a tough learning curve, but one of those ones that I think it probably helped me throughout the rest of my career.
It was a few years in non-league, but the 04-05 season, I believe it was, winning the league. I spoke to Simon King about it recently, and he spoke about the style of play, that sort of thing. 12 points it was, the gap. What made that team so special that season?
I think the year before, Martin Allen, obviously we'll go on to him talking about Gillingham with him, but Martin was my assistant with Peter Shreves, and then he ended up becoming the manager, and he put together a really good squad, and we lost in the playoffs the year before. We lost to Shrewsbury on penalties. Yeah. He had left and gone to Brentford because we had done so well when he was really a young manager. And Paul Fairclough come in. Paul Fairclough was England non-league manager. He knew a lot of good young non-league players, so sort of added that to the group that was already there with Martin, and we just had a really good group of players. Some players like, obviously talking about Simon King, he was a young lad, but he was a real good footballer, real good player. We had Dean Sinclair and Nicky Bailey, other young players that was real good players, and then we had Ian Hendon and Giuliano Grazioli, were sort of two of the more senior boys. Terrific pros, and obviously Grat scored 30 odd goals for us that year. We just we just got off to a real good start, and had a good team spirit, and we just in the end quite comfortably won the league, and it was a real enjoyable thing to be part of. And
how about the first year back in the Football League? Because I spoke to Simon King, and he was actually a bit disappointed with how it went, even though survival was pretty comfortable.
Yeah, it was. That was a weird year for me. Me and Paul Fairclough, he was probably one of the only managers I didn't really get on with that well throughout my career. Okay. I've actually caught up with him last year because we had a bit of a Barnet reunion and chatted to him about it. Obviously, me being a manager now, and I think a lot of it was, I think everything with relationships is 50-50, but I was quite young and naive at the time, and I felt I had a chance to leave the year before and I wasn't allowed to do it, and I was a little bit held a grudge on it and things like that, which I regret. But the year after we went up into the Football League, I ended up leaving probably with about 10 games to go, something like that. I ended up leaving Barnet. So it was a bit of a weird year for me. I think we, like you're saying, we quite comfortably survived, but there was a turnover of players, new boys coming in, and the sort of team that we had started to break up a little bit. Grats weren't a regular anymore. I wasn't probably playing as much as I liked to, and a few other boys and stuff like that. So it was a comfortable year for Barnet in terms of staying up, but probably not one of the greatest years in my career, if I'm being completely honest.
And was the departure sort of a personal thing with the manager then?
No, a little bit. It was more, I got in a little bit of trouble away from football, just being a young, stupid lad as I was, and I ended up having a bit of a falling out with the chairman about it, because he said I should have told the club about it, which in hindsight maybe I should have done, but at the time, like I'm saying, I was probably young and a bit naive. I didn't think I should have. But I had got to a point, if I'm being completely honest, at Barnet, I'd been there like 8 years. I'd seen everything going on. I was part of the team that got relegated, and I was the only player that stayed and got us back promoted. And I think I really needed a fresh start in my career, and I regret the way I left, but ultimately I think it was the best thing that happened to me in my football career. Give me a second chance to kick on again. And a couple of years earlier, obviously when Stilly was my manager and Martin Allen, there was quite a lot of teams talking about signing me and giving me a chance to going up the levels, and I probably went a little bit stale, if I'm being honest. So probably not the best way to leave, but ultimately I think in my career it's probably the best thing that happened as well.
Yeah, fair enough. I was going to say I think you were the longest 7 player at that point, so
yeah,
fair enough. you obviously go to Crawley for a matter of months, and that perhaps didn't work out, but you seem to settle, I mean, appearance-wise, definitely at Dagenham, and you get the promotion into League 2 in 07, and promotions are becoming a bit of a theme already in your career. How was that season?
Yeah, it was. Obviously, I left Barnet that year, and Dagenham wanted to sign me in the summer, so did Crawley, but John Steele, I'd obviously known Steele really well from my time at Barnet. He got me to go into training, and he said the contract would be there for me to sign. It was all a little bit up in the air at the time at Dagenham, so Crawley had been really good to me, and they'd chased me all summer. I ended up signing for Crawley, but little did I know that at the time there was people in charge of Crawley. Should I say, it probably wasn't the most straight-laced people, and they didn't do my contract properly. I'd signed a contract there, but they never processed it. Stilly being Stilly somehow found out about that. I don't know how he found out, but put a 7-day approach in for me, because Craig McElsmith and Shane Blackett were going to Peterborough from Dagenham, and in the January time, I think it was December, January time, he put a 7-day approach in for me. That meant I could leave Crawley for nothing. And I went and signed for Dagenham, and probably the biggest moment in my career. I didn't know it at the time, but I joined a group of young lads at Dagenham that were just unbelievable team spirit and togetherness, and with a common goal of trying to get promoted and getting Dagenham out of the National League into the Football League. And I was just lucky I got caught up in it. I'm so lucky that they chose to sign me, and it's probably the best thing that happened to me, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, like you say, obviously carried on, and then it was the 08-09 season where you just missed out on the playoffs and you just continued going. Just for context sake, obviously Gillingham won those playoffs, but we'll skip Brentford if that's all right for time's sake.
Just on that, I come and watched that playoff final. I come and cheered on Kingy. We lost to Shrewsbury on the last day of the season, and they took the last playoff place to get in there off of us. So I was in the Gillingham, and that I think it was a Saturday or a Sunday I was, and I'd been out, I'd had a few drinks the night before, and it was late in the game, and I said to my dad, I'm quickly going to run to the toilet because I'll obviously be back for I'm down in the toilets with quite a few other Gillingham fans. We obviously hear the roar when Simeon Jackson scored. So, but I was there as a Gills fan that day, cheering them on that day. They beat Shrewsbury in that final. Yeah,
that's brilliant. Yeah, I said to Simon King, it was only a couple of days ago, but I said I was only 10 at the time, and literally I didn't even see the ball go in, and my dad was just body slamming me everywhere. Like it was crazy.
I didn't, until that point, if I'm being completely honest, I didn't know how well supported Gillingham was until I was obviously in that away end that day. Fantastic support, and obviously it was a brilliant day as well. I know obviously they had the playoff heartache there before Wembley and stuff, so it was it was a good day actually.
Yeah, definitely. Why Wycombe then? Why the move to Wycombe?
Well, I'd signed. Wycombe wanted me the year with Dagenham when we just missed out on the playoffs. Wycombe actually had a bid accepted for me by Dagenham to go there. Peter Taylor had put an offer in for me, and it was accepted. And me and John Steele sat down, and I think he had looked around at the time and sort of decided that there wasn't anyone else that he could get in. And I didn't want to leave Dagenham at the time, if I'm being completely honest. I really loved being part of the club. I thought we could make the playoffs that year and ultimately get promoted up into League One as well. So I turned down the move and stayed with him. At the end, we just missed out. Like you're saying, I went to Brentford that summer and I broke my ankle really early late in pre-season at Brentford. I had a bit of a stop-start year with Brentford, but Gary Waddock were taking over at Wycombe. He signed Nicky Ball and Danny Foster there, and they wanted a lad called Brentford wanted a lad called Woodman from Wycombe, and Gary Waddock wanted me, so it was a bit of a swap deal to go there. I'd always from afar really loved Wycombe. Nice ground, lovely place. It weren't too far from my house as well. Location really suited, so it was it was a real good club to join, to be honest.
Obviously it was a bit up and down in terms of the record at Wycombe. How was it going from the ups to the downs, and what went wrong when you get relegated?
The year we went up, we were such a good side. That was probably my best actual footballing team and team to be part of. That team, we got promoted with out of League Two. I think it was Chesterfield and I think it was Bury that went up with us that year. We finished third in the league, but we had a really good team. And all it was that I don't think Gary Waddock probably had the funds really to kick us on at the start. When we went up into League One, we probably needed to add about another 2 or 3 real good quality players to the group that we had to probably have made us a mid-table League One side, if I'm being honest.
Yeah.
But he didn't have it, so I think he sort of went for a few other League Two players, a few players that he knew and stuff, and I think come the January time, we ended up bringing in Paul Hayes, Craig Eastman from Arsenal, Gary Doherty, the old Tottenham centre-half. He had some real good quality to the group, and we went on an unbelievable run, and we got ourselves in a position where I thought we was going to get out of the relegation zone, and we ultimately just failed and went down. But I think if Gary Wood would have been given the budget in the summer, I think we'd have been comfortable that year. I think it just happened too late in terms of the budget he really needed to keep the team on. But it was weird because it was such a good club. I was buzzing to get promoted with them, but then to also leave at the end of that year on a relegation. And the time when I went down with Barnet, I was only a young lad and hardly played, but I'd probably played about 30 or 40 games that year for Wycombe when we got relegated, so it was a tough one to take at the end of that season.
Yeah, Wycombe are a great club. I've been there a couple of times, sort of been behind the scenes a couple of times. Like, everyone there is so lovely, and I know they've got the changing owners now, so I wish them all the best. And
it's a good club.
If we get a points per game decision, they're going to go up as well, so that'll be pretty good.
That'd be amazing, especially with obviously Gaz Ainsworth. He was a player when I was there with him. He was like 38, 39. He was unbelievable. So he's doing great as a manager as well. It's really good to see. Yeah,
it is definitely. So like you say, you depart, but Gillingham then. How come it was Gillingham?
You know what? That summer is probably the hardest summer I ever had as a professional. I'd gone from, like I'm saying, leaving Dagenham and having quite a good few options to get him to Brentford and then getting promoted with Wycombe, and then played a lot of games for Wycombe in the year they went up and a lot of games in the year that we went down. But the phone didn't ring. Honestly, it was the offers that I did have were from National League clubs, and I just didn't. I didn't want to go to National League because I've spent a lot of my career there, and I'm not I felt like I was above it, but I felt like I was dropping from being a League One player to all of a sudden no League One team wanted me, no League Two team wanted me. I couldn't believe it. But I had a conversation with John Still again at Dagenham. There was a possibility of going back there. And then I got a heads up that Martin was probably going to be taking over as Gillingham, and he sort of went in quite late into the summer, didn't he, that summer?
Yeah.
So I had waited around on hoping that he was going to get the job, and luckily for me, he did.
Yeah, because I've read that you were worried you were going to drop down into non-league.
I knew Andy Hessenthaler, and he had been interested in taking me on loan from Wycombe the year before, and obviously Hesse had gone up to sort of director of football at the time.
Yeah.
I'd obviously played for Martin at Barnet, and they had gone off. Gillingham had gone off to a training camp in Le Touquet in France.
Yeah.
And Martin had got in touch via Hesse to get me to go in training, so I was sort of training with a group that was left behind. I weren't sure whether that meant they didn't really want me or what it was. Wasn't sure about it. But when they got back from France, we played a training ground game against Dagenham, and I played all right. I wouldn't say I played my best I've ever played, but I played quite well. I don't think we had a lot of forwards at the time. And John Steele was quite vocal to Martin, saying he thought he should sign me, and I think it was like 24 hours later I was signing for the club. So it was it all happened pretty quick in the end.
Yeah, that's brilliant. And like you say, you played under Martin Allen a couple of times. I think it's pretty well known as a character. What was he like? I'm going to say at Gillingham, but what was he like overall as a person?
Honestly, I've got so much time for Martin Allen. He's got two sides to him, and the side, it's just literally he's so fun to be around. His training's brilliant. Just as a person, some of the crazy stuff he gets you to do, and he's real big on team spirit and stuff like that, massive on it. And the highs with him are amazing, and but with anyone like that, the lows are quite hard as well, because he's quite demanding. But I think that's part of his his real strength and the reason he's done so well as a manager, because he's so demanding of his players and of the group and stuff like that. But he really helped me when I was at Barnet, just being, my assistant manager at the spell he had there, and then obviously being my manager at Barnet. And then that spell with him at Gillingham was probably one of the hardest pre-seasons I've ever done. But I think it proved to be exactly right, the way how fit the group was. I could tell from probably a week, 10 days of being with in and around the boys, we had a team that I thought, wow, this lot's going to have a good chance of getting promoted this season. I've been obviously fortunate to get promoted with Wycombe a couple of years earlier, and then in and around groups that had promotions, and everything that was within that group, and Martin as manager, I thought we was going to do it that year as well.
Yeah, I've heard he's quite a good man manager, that sort of thing.
He's brilliant. He's just an absolute character. Like I'm saying, some of the stuff he does at times people might be not too happy about, but I can only talk on a personal level, and he's been absolutely brilliant for me in my career, and I've always thoroughly loved playing for him and being in and around the groups, the teams he builds, to be honest, and Gillingham was no different to that.
Yeah, and you mentioned the sort of club as a whole. You thought had a chance of getting promoted. What was the squad like, and what was it like in the dressing room?
Yeah, the dressing room was brilliant. There was a good mixture of obviously the older players and the younger players as well. You know, there was a lot of talented young boys coming through at that time as well. But I could just tell by the fitness levels. I remember one of the things that happened quite quickly whilst I was there, and I'd only just signed. Martin chose not to keep Barry Fuller, and that was a real in the dressing room. Baz had a real. I think a real respect of all the boys, and I think everyone was quite shocked when it happened that day. But I think Martin had a clear plan and an idea of how he wanted the team to play, and I think he see that how fit Fishy was pre-season. I think he see that he could have him and Joe on the other side bombing on and playing a tight midfield three and loads of energy, loads of pace in the team. And I think Baz has come back and done brilliantly for Gillingham. He's a fantastic player, a great pro as well. Yeah. But I think that year Martin just seemed to get it right, the balance between the quality players in the team and the real energetic and fit lads to go with it. It really worked that year.
Yeah, no, I can see that. I spoke to Matt Fish on this channel as well, and I think it was well known at the time as well. It was sort of Matt Fish or Barry Fuller. They just both had injuries, that sort of thing. But like you say, now even like compliment to Barry, he's come back. He got Player of the Year first year back. I think he's 35 now, and he's still going really strong in the team every week. So it's a credit to who he is, and I can see him being a real leader as well behind the scenes.
I've known Baz for years as well, because he came on loan to Barnet when I was there, and he was at Charlton at the time, I think he was, and he was quality then. And like I'm saying, that was a massive moment, that decision by Martin by not offering him a deal, because honestly the feeling within the group that day at training, obviously I'd only just joined this group, everyone was gutted. They was really gutted to see Baz leave, and he went on and done brilliantly for AFC Wimbledon. Like you're saying, he's back doing really well for Gillingham now, and that doesn't surprise me. I think he'll still keep going for a good few years yet.
Yeah, I think so. Unfortunately, it was only a few months you were at Gillingham for. It was the January you departed. Why did you leave halfway through the season?
You know what? It's, I'm not just saying this because I'm obviously talking on a Gillingham thing. This and the other. It's probably one of my biggest regrets in my career, leaving that January.
Okay.
I'd done well pre-season. I'd scored quite a lot of goals. I started the season, and obviously we played Bristol City in the League Cup or whatever it was, and I scored. But and I felt like I was going to play up front with Keds, obviously from pre-season.
Yeah.
Dion Burton got brought in, and you know what, Dion done brilliant that year. He was absolutely fantastic from when he come in. Him and Keds built up a real good partnership, and it was just hard for me to dislodge them. And I'd gone from playing week in, week out, and being to being a bit part player at Gillingham, which was hard for me. I wanted to play more. Adam Birchall was coming back from injury, and I think everyone wanted Birchie to do well. He'd come from Dover, and I think all the fans wanted him to do well. And also, Cody was coming back as well. So it was. Martin had a conversation with me and said, "Look, your playing time's going to be even more limited than it has been. It might be the best if you leave." So it took a few weeks, to be honest. There was a few teams that come in for me, and I didn't really want to leave. And then obviously John still got in touch with Martin, and the deal was agreed with Dagenham for me to go to Dagenham. And right at the last minute, it was really strange. Right at the last minute, Martin asked me not to go.
Right.
He said, he felt that I could still bring something to the group. He still thought I was really good around the place, and obviously my experience I'd had from promotions and stuff like that. And he sort of said he wanted me to stay. And it was only literally because I'd given my word to Stilly, and I was going back to Dagenham and Redbridge, where I'd had such a good time. Like, I chose to still go. But I knew at that point I was leaving a team that was going to end up winning the league. So it was more my personal thing of going off and playing. And like I'm saying, I regret it massively now, because 2 weeks after signing for Dagenham and Redbridge, John still left and went to Luton. And I had to watch from afar Gillingham winning the league and not really enjoying myself back at Dagenham, really going back to somewhere where I was chasing, trying to get back to what I had been 4 or 5 years earlier, when I could have been part of. And it still hurts me now that when I look at the picture of all the boys celebrating on that last day of the season, that I should have really been part of that. I shouldn't have left when I did.
For you, how was it seeing Gills win the league? Because I'm assuming it probably was a bit of mixed emotions for you.
You know what, it was because of the fact of I wish I'd have been part of it, but I also did feel part of it as well. Martin was great. He had got us all to sign this thing at the start of the season that if we got promoted, we was all going to go Benidorm together and stuff like that.
Yeah.
soon as the team had won that league, the phone rang, and I was like, oh, bloody hell, it's mine. I wonder what he wants. He's like, we're going Benidorm. You signed a bit of paper, you're coming with us. So me and Tom Flanagan ended up going away to the boys to Benidorm as well for a bit of a celebration at the end of the season. But being away with all the boys and that 2 or 3 days just really made me regret not being still part of that squad to celebrate like they did that day, you know, with the draw at home. So it was really hard for me to leave for my own personal wanting to play more. I think it was the wrong decision, if I'm being honest. I should have stayed and maybe just gone, right, this year maybe I'm not going to play as much as I quite like to, but I'm going to be part of something that's quite special. And just that group and, you know, the people within it, you know, Adam Barrett as the captain, he was a great guy, unbelievable person. Obviously, Daki was only a young lad coming through at the time, but everyone could see how quality he was going to be. Like I'm saying, my biggest problem that year was that Kedge was brilliant. You know, great player, real good person. Dion Burton had a brilliant year as well at the back end of his career. He was brilliant for us. Miles Weston played either on the wing or up front, was, you know, a fantastic player. And you had obviously Adam Birchall and Cody McDonald. So I was probably in a position where I was just unfortunate that we had such a good attacking talent that year that I probably didn't play as much as I wanted to. But it was brilliant to see him get promoted.
Fair enough. Like you say, obviously back to Dagenham for a short period of time. But then you move on to a club that I'm going to assume is close to your heart as a player, Eastleigh. How did that first come around?
One of my friends that I played with at Dagenham and Redbridge, Glenn Southam, had obviously joined him a couple of years, I think a year earlier, something like that, and had missed out on the playoffs.
Yeah.
And I was doing a degree at the time, a sports science degree, to probably once my career was finishing to go into trying to be a PE teacher. Yep. So I had probably 5 National League clubs coming for me that summer. And obviously Eastleigh, who was a National South or Conference South, however you want to say it, team at the time, but they only trained 3 days a week. So to fit around everything I was planning on doing, and with the location of travel and things like that, because it's a southern-based league, obviously, I chose to go there. And if I'm being honest, I thought I was only going to go there for a year, just to play for a year and obviously finish doing my studies and stuff. And how many years later I'm still there now? So it was a crazy thing that I ended up joining, and now obviously it's been such a massive part of my life, and obviously quite a major part of it as well. Yeah, it's strange how things fall into place like that. It's weird, but obviously it's for the better. Again, you get another promotion on your CV, winning the Conference South. Good run the following year, missing out on the playoffs, that sort of thing. What made that team so successful? Being honest, for the Conference South, without being too disrespectful to it, we had too good players not to win that league. Obviously, I knew stuff from Glenn Southam from playing with him at Dagenham. He was probably a National League player. We had people, someone like Dean Beckwith. I think he's been at Gillingham before. Stuart Fleetwood. We just had an array of players that really should have been playing in the National League and the National League South. So we won that year, and quite a big thing for me as well. I played my whole career really as a centre forward or a right midfielder. Our centre midfielder got injured in pre-season, and Richard Hill asked me to fill in and do a job there, and I ended up playing the whole season centre midfield, and probably, if I'm being honest, probably added another 2-3 years onto my career. I really enjoyed it and got a new buzz for playing there. And ended up, like you're saying, getting promoted the first year with him, and then we lost to Grimsby in the playoffs the following year, and I really thought we was going to get back-to-back promotions up into the league as well with that team then. But yeah, it was, real enjoyable. Sort of give me another lease of life at the back end of my career.
I think I'm right in saying it was the end of the 2015-16 season when you started doing coaching for the first time, and you took over a game when Chris Todd left in August. I think that was. Why coaching? Because it seems like that sort of came out of the blue, maybe.
Yeah, so my first sort of thing of stepping into being sort of an assistant manager was Chris Todd was manager. Richard Hill had left. Chris Todd was his assistant, and he stepped up to become manager. And he brought someone in with him to be his assistant manager. And I never had a problem with the guy who was his assistant manager, but behind the scenes, I didn't even know about it. It was really bad because I was obviously like captain at the time and stuff. A few of the boys really didn't like him.
Right, okay.
So Toddy made the decision to obviously let him go as being assistant manager, and he asked me if I would step up just to the end of the season to be like player assistant manager.
Yeah.
And I just said yes, of course I will try and help. I'd only done my what was it, my level 2 at the time. I didn't even have any coaching badges or anything like that. So I just said I would help out and do it. And God, one thing led to another. And then before you know it, obviously I am where I am today.
Yeah. And there was a little spell in between that I believe you're at Whitehawk. Why that little period?
So for that end of that season, I'd helped out to become assistant manager, and we just missed out on the playoffs. And Toddy in the club, the chairman, didn't want to change things. They wanted Toddy to still be manager and me to be sort of player assistant manager. So I agreed to it, but I still wanted to play, if I'm being honest. I still probably felt like I had another year or 2 years left playing in me.
Yeah.
But I said yes to it because I didn't want to, obviously say no. They had asked me to do it, so I carried on doing it. Unfortunately, I think it was 4 or 5 games into the season, Chris Todd got sacked as manager, and Ronnie Moore come in as manager. And rightly, at the time, Ronnie Moore brought in Kevin Watson as his assistant manager. So me, as being probably I should have just been a player, was looked upon as Ben Strevens assistant manager stroke player, and I don't really think they wanted me around the place because it's very hard to take over a team and then still have the old assistant manager in the playing staff, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I wasn't offended whatsoever. My old manager Richard Hill was taken over at Whitehawk. And said, "Do you want to come and play here?" And I just thought, look, I probably only got this season left in me playing football. Maybe another year after that, I'll just go and play. And it was an awkward situation for me at Eastleigh as well. Like I'm saying, I'd been asked to be assistant manager, and then all of a sudden it was really hard for the management team coming in. So I didn't want to leave, but I had to do it just for myself and for the football club. So I went and had a short spell at Whitehawk. Yeah.
And was it pretty straightforward decision for you going back to Eastleigh?
Yeah, so at the time it was just going back as a player. Obviously Martin Allen, Ronnie Moore got sacked. Martin Allen had gone into the football club, and I think because he knew me as a person and obviously as a player, and I knew the group very well from being the player assistant manager there only probably a couple of months earlier, he wanted me to come in and be a sort of bit part player but also help within the dressing room and stuff. So at the time I had the chance, and it was first steps into a thing, but I had the chance of becoming Whitehawk manager. They wanted me to be the manager. Yeah. Maidstone down the road, Jay Saunders had contacted me, wanted me to go to Maidstone. I was all pretty set to go and play for Maidstone, and then obviously Martin come in, and it was actually, I think, Jay phoning Martin as a bit of a reference for me. Sort of made Martin get me to go back to Eastleigh, so I went back just as a player, obviously. Things didn't go at all well for Martin at Eastleigh. I really thought he was going to do well at Eastleigh, and it didn't quite work. He ended up getting sacked. Richard Hill come back and then wanted me to step up to be assistant manager, so it was crazy. A real mad year in my career.
Did the whole managing thing make it a bit easier to retire from playing?
Yeah, you know what? I obviously have retired now, but I've never officially done it. I just I was helping out to be assistant manager and playing when I could. Obviously, it was first spell with Richard Hill in charge, and obviously Hesse had come into the club as well to become assistant manager. So I was like first team coach / player, and then obviously Richard Hill moved on, and Handy Hessenthaler stepped up to become manager, and I just took on the role as assistant manager and not really a player anymore. Yeah, I didn't even really, one of those where people say, I'm retired or officially do anything. I haven't really even done that. I just obviously moved from being player coach to assistant manager pretty quickly, and just got on with it.
So you never know, if you have some injuries or something, you could get the boots back on.
Well, I don't want to get myself to sack, because that would probably happen if I got my boots back on. I think.
Fair enough. And you mentioned Hess. How was it working with him?
Honestly, I loved every minute of it. I love him as a guy. I've known him for a number of years now. Obviously, he I think when's after he left Gillingham as a player, a little bit similar to the situation with me. He come on loan to Barnet. That was the first real time I met him. Yeah. Obviously, got on really well with him from afar. Whilst he was at Gillingham and things like that, and then obviously got to work with him at Eastleigh, and I just love him. He's so enthusiastic. He's a real character. I know Gillingham fans think a lot of him, and I do as well as a person. He's a great guy, and I still pretty much speak to him once a week now. Really helping me within my coaching thing. Whenever I've got problems or bounce ideas off, he's one of the people I phone and speak to about it. So when he chose to leave, he was manager obviously, and Maidstone would come in for him to go there, and he didn't go. And then Dover come in for him the chance to go back to Dover. I knew deep down he was going to do it just for his family and moving back closer to home. Yeah. But I was really gutted. Honestly, I was really gutted. I was really enjoying being his assistant manager. I was learning so much every day, and I was gutted when he left. And it's sort of look, I've ended up taking over as manager now, and it's gone okay for me. But at the time, I still feel it now. You know, I wish he wouldn't have left. I wish I was still his assistant manager, still learning as much as I was.
Yeah.
But sometimes, in life, everything happens for a reason. So, but I had a real good time with him there.
Yeah, and I know as soon as you went to Dover and you were in caretaker charge, and he was saying, like, give Ben Strevens a job. How badly did you want it yourself?
It was one of those, just because, like how I said to you before about obviously when Ronnie Moore come in as manager, I deep down knew that if another manager come into the football club, and it wouldn't have been anything personal against me, they'd probably want to bring their own person in with them, because that's how football is, you want to have your own staff around you and stuff like that. I deep down knew that if I didn't go for the job and really go for it, a new manager would have come in, and it would have only been a matter of time before I was moved on. I was leaving the football club, and I really didn't want that to be the case. So I threw my hat in the ring. Hess obviously gave me a glowing reference to the people that owned the football club. And the biggest thing I had in my favour was the players really wanted me to get the job, and they really fought for me to get the job. There was quite a lot of other people that come in for the job. It got down to a point where it was looking like it was going to be given to someone else, and I think a few of the senior players sort of said, no, we don't want that to happen, we want to carry on with Strevs in charge, and luckily for me they did, and luckily that Hess put in such a glowing reference for me as well.
Yeah, definitely. And you had a pretty good first season in charge, I think it's fair to say. Find yourselves in the playoffs, beating Wrexham and then losing on penalties to Salford, who obviously ultimately go up. How did that feel for you as your first sort of major hiccup perhaps in management?
You know what, I knew the group of players we had from pre-season with Hesse. Like I said, I knew with Gillingham, I knew we had a good group of lads. I knew we had a good chance that year. We just needed a little bit of luck with injuries and that stuff because we didn't have a big squad. But we went on a great run after Christmas leading into going to the playoffs, and I really, deep down, I know it's easy to say, I really thought we was going to win them playoffs. Yeah. Especially when we went up to Wrexham, and Wrexham had the best home form in the league, and we went up to Wrexham and beat them on the Thursday night. Yeah. And we'd already been to Salford earlier in the season and beat them. I really fancied our chances of going there. Just ultimately, like with football and playoffs, everyone's been there before. Losing on penalties is so cruel, especially over you've played 46 games in the playoff eliminator to lose on penalty kicks, and I really felt for the two lads that missed the penalties as well. But the biggest thing for me was sitting back on the coach on the way home after that game, knowing that my group was going to get broken up because we had so many players that was out of contract. There was so much interest in loads of my boys that I knew if we didn't get promoted, then they was all going to end up leaving. And unfortunately for me, that ended up being the case. We lost sort of 5-6 of our starting players in that summer, and it was look, they deserved the moves, and I was buzzing for every one of them. They all got moves they deserved, but it was also hard for me knowing that we're so close to getting promoted up to League Two, and ultimately dismantled the squad as well. Before
the whole coronavirus situation, how would you assess this season for the team?
Honestly, up and down. I had a good belief in the group early part of the season. We drew lots and lots of games of football. I think we probably had some of the highest amount of draws in the league. I haven't looked at the facts, but I know we was pretty high in the too many draws. We just didn't turn close games into wins like we did the year before. Yeah. And it put pressure on. I had 3 of my back 5, because we played 3 at the back with wing backs, out injured. A lad called Rob Atkinson, who we got from Fulham's youth team, he had done great for me. We ended up selling him to Oxford in January for a good price for the football club. So it's been a tough year this year. Like I'm saying, the team that I lost the playoff final to, by the time this season ultimately ended, I think only 2 of the boys were in the team. So it's been an up and down year. Like I'm saying, we put a lot of pressure on ourselves by drawing too many games at the start of the season, and at the back end of this, before obviously all this horrible coronavirus come on, we wasn't playing well for whatever reason. The group wasn't quite getting the results that I would wanted. I know we'd have had enough to been pretty comfortable in staying in and around a position we are, maybe moving up a couple or dropping down a couple more, but ultimately it wasn't the season I wanted it to be, and I know I've got a big summer ahead now.
Yeah, it's always frustrating when sort of a team does well and doesn't go up, and you just know the squad's going to get ripped apart and there's nothing you can do about it. It's tough.
Yeah.
It's tough.
Yeah, no, look, I knew that. Obviously, Paul McCallum, my centre forward, he scored 27 goals for me. He ended up signing for another team in our league called Solihull Moors, but that's because they just offered him a ridiculous deal. He was very close to signing for Gillingham. I can say that on record now. I thought the deal was agreed that he was going to sign for Gillingham this summer, just gone.
Right.
I lost him. I lost Marty Yates, who got 27 assists for me. My right back, Josh Hare, went to Bristol Rovers in your league, doing great. Yeah. Another one of the boys, Joey Jones, is playing for Salford in League 2. And the goalkeeper, Luke Southwood's going to be Reading's number 2 next year. He's been playing up in the Scottish League for Hamilton. So the team, there were some real good players in that team, and they all deserved to get the moves they did. But ultimately, for me as a manager, there was nothing I could do about it to get them to stay, which is really hard sometimes.
Yeah, it's tough. In terms of the current situation that's going on, we all know about it. I think by the time this goes live, it would have been a couple of days ago. But the National League has sort of said that there's been a majority vote to stop the rest of the games. I know they might go into the playoffs, that sort of thing. But what do you think of the decision?
I think I've got to be honest, I think it's the right decision, as tough as it is for me to say that, because honestly I wanted the season to finish as much as everyone. I'm missing football, but the way it is in the country at the moment, the way the social distancing and stuff like that, and ultimately just the way football clubs, there's no revenue coming into football clubs. A lot of clubs are furloughing their players, so to try and get them back playing, I think it would have been really difficult. And it's slightly different in the Football League with obviously Gillingham and other teams. A lot of boys' contracts end at the end of June. In the National League, a lot of boys' contracts end at the end of April. So a decision had to be made, and it's probably the right decision. I'm just hoping that it's a fair way that they finish the season, in terms of, I really hope the teams at the top of the table get a chance to move up, because I think they deserved it. If Barrow don't go up this year and they've been top all season, I feel really gutted for them.
Yeah. Definitely. And there will now be votes on how they do end the season. I'm not sure how much you're involved in that, but do you know how the whole process will work?
I think honestly, this is only me thinking, I don't know. I think there's a few different options. There's obviously, like they've done in the lower leagues, is obviously to null and void the season, which I think would be really tough on the teams, like I'm saying, at the top end of the table. There's obviously to work out and maybe do it on points per games for relegation and promotion. Then I start feeling sorry for the teams down at the bottom, because you think maybe they might have got out of it. People go on all sorts of different runs over the course of the season. There's a few teams in our league that are probably picking up a bit of form and believe they could get out of it. Yeah. And then there's the other way, that they maybe just do the promotion and no relegation. I think they're the options. This and that, in terms of a playoff picture and stuff like that. If they could do that, if there was no relegations and maybe someone gets promoted, I'd be happy with that. But I'm not so sure everyone in the league would be happy with it. But I'm not sure that don't think they're going to make a decision that everyone's going to agree on, if I'm being completely honest. Yeah.
Do you know when that decision will be made and the votes, etc.?
No, I know that for the initial vote, they was given till May the 7th to get the vote in of whether to finish the season or not finish the season.
Yeah.
In terms of this other vote, I honestly don't know, but I'd imagine it's probably got to be around the same time, I would imagine, because of the fact of trying to sort playoffs out and things like that. But hopefully there's a bit of time with it. I think there's going to be more news coming on the country, probably the start of May. It's just whether it's going to be safe to get football back up and running. And being honest, with fans in the stadium, I think for the Premier League and all of us, we could watch that on telly and they'd be fine with it. But for lower league clubs to not have the gate receipts, I'm not so sure that National League clubs or League 1 or League 2 teams would be able to survive without the gate receipts. So some real tough decisions, higher than obviously me, that thankfully I don't have to make.
Yeah. And do you know how Eastleigh will be voting?
No, I honestly don't. It'll probably be with my chairman, but I think they're the same as me. They probably would feel sorry for the Chorleys or the Files or the Ebbsfleet if they was to go down, but they might come to a vote where you have to ultimately choose which one out of the two you're going to offend or not be happy with. And as harsh as it sounds, I would probably go on the terms of, I think Barrow deserved to get promoted, and if that means that Chorley, Fylde and Ebbsfleet get relegated, I really don't want that to happen, but that would probably be the way I would choose to go. But I don't think I'm going to be making that decision, thankfully.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. And just last couple of questions in terms of you, obviously still a young coach, manager, etc. What does the future hold for you, do you think?
don't honestly know. Get through this like everyone else is in the country. Come out of this hopefully all fit and well and raring to get back into football. I just want to have a good year with Eastleigh. You know, I want ultimately my big ambition at the moment is to get Eastleigh into the Football League, because I've been there quite a long time now and I've lost out in the playoffs as a player and the playoffs as a manager. So I really, really want to get the club into the Football League. That's my short-term ambition. But I also know how hard the league is to get out of. So that's what I'm going to be trying to do.
Yeah, absolutely. And just in terms of context of the channel, something we started asking all our guests that come on, could we ever see you back at Gillingham?
Well, I certainly wouldn't say no. I'd love to be back there as a manager or coach sometime. Fantastic place. Like I'm saying, until I went to that player final, and then that year, obviously, as a player, I didn't really, and it's not, hopefully people won't be offended, but I didn't realise how well supported Gillingham was. It's an amazing fan base and club, and I did, I only had a short spell there, and like I said, something I regret now, but really enjoyed my time there. Who knows if Hesse gets back involved there at some point, or Martin out of the blue down the line, which I don't know whether them two things would happen. I might have a chance of coming back, and look, if I do well as a manager myself, Gillingham's a League One club, I want to move up through the levels if I can. I'm not sure that would ever happen, but I would certainly like it to happen. That would be great. Definitely.
Ben, thank you for your time, mate. I really appreciate it, and I wish you all the best for everything.
No worries. Thank you very much for having me on.
So that is that for this episode of JFG Meets. I'd like to give another huge thank you to Ben for taking the time out of his day to chat to me. Please do like the video if you enjoyed, and feel free to leave a comment and subscribe to the channel as well. Please check out all of our other platforms, which can be found in the description, and do let us know anyone else related to the club that you think we should get on the show in the future. We do have a few episodes lined up already, so keep an eye out for those, and please check out all of our previous episodes as well if you fancy it. See you soon.